Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Dustinkreis and today I have my Team Altago shirt on and we're going to talk about ease. I did these videos before where I talk about an entire series, get out the collection, show you guys the games and just talk about the differences between each one. I did that with the Zelda series and I think that's where a lot of you guys jumped on board, but I also did it for the Dragon Quest and the Final Fantasy series, though those were really early in my channel. So I'm going to put a link to those because, sometimes when people, sign on or subscribe to new channels, they don't go back and watch the old stuff. And, it might be interesting for you guys to see because those were some of my first videos on camera. I was a little bit more nervous. And, of course, I had the time limit of YouTube, so I had to chop them all up. So I might go back and reshoot those. But it might be interesting to watch this and then go back and watch me be like, hi, this is Dragon Quest 2, and I really like this game. So it might be interesting for you guys to see, might not, but I'll give you guys the ability to see those. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about one of the great unrequited loves of my video gaming life, and that is the Ys series. Now, I remember seeing this series on import watches. I always saw this top-down view of this little red-headed guy with a sword and a shield. That said HP on the bottom with a bar. It had experience, and it had monsters walking around the screen. And I didn't know anything about this game. I just saw those screenshots, and I was like, I want this game. It looks like an RPG. I want it. And I could never really find it. Because you have to remember, back when I was a kid, we didn't have the internet. I didn't have YouTube to go on and do extensive research on games. We had Nintendo Power, EGM, GamePro, all these old magazines, and that's all you had. You had to look at these screenshots and sort of decide if the game is what you wanted. But I always knew that I wanted these games, and like I said, back in the day with that lack of information, I had the ability to get some of the Ys games, but I never knew about it. It just kind of slipped through the cracks. So now that I'm older, and of course, since Xseed has been putting out their excellent PSP Ys games, I've really just dove into this series and I really haven't come up for air. It's really taken over a lot of my collecting. I've basically I've purchased about every version of the Ys games that I have systems for. There might be a few I'm missing. Of course, there's the PC and the older, Japanese computer versions of the games, but I don't think I'll ever really pick those up. Except for maybe Ys Origins. I really want Ys Origins, but I think it might be coming out on the Vita. I don't know. But anyway, let me stop jabbering here, and let's go ahead and I'm going to show you the first Ys game I ever played. Now, it wasn't this copy, and I'll discuss that in a minute. But the first Ys game I ever played was Ys Books 1 and 2 for the TurboGrafx, or in this case, the PC Engine. Now, I didn't own a TurboGrafx, so how did I play this game? As soon as I saw that there was TurboGrafx games on the Wii's Virtual Console, that is when I finally dove into the series, when I had my Wii. As soon as I saw TurboGrafx games, I instantly started looking all the time, and one time, I just happened to see Ys Book 1 and 2, and I jumped on it. I downloaded it as soon as I saw it, and instantly started playing it, and what a fantastic game. Top-down view, much like the old Zelda games. Graphics are phenomenal. I love the TurboGrafx graphics. That's kind of a weird statement, but I love the cutscenes, I love the music. Everything about this game is fantastic. Now, this was what introduced me to the series, and for, with a lot of my thought process, this is the best version of the game. I think this has the best music, I think it has the best graphics, I just think this is the perfect version of the game. However, there have been several different ports of this game. And probably the one that all of you guys know about is the Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles for the PSP. Now this is a fantastic box set. by Xseed. A little bit skimpier. It seemed like, you know, as each box set went on, the Ys box sets by Xseed got a little skimpier, but it still had a CD soundtrack, and that's what I really wanted. The interesting thing about these old PC Engine games is that if you put these into a CD player, this is basically the soundtrack. You have to move through a couple, you know, tracks that are like the actual game and stuff like that, but you'll eventually get to the actual audio tracks on the CD, and you can put this in your car CD player and listen to these fantastic tracks. But with these newer games, you have to have a CD soundtrack with them, and that's why I picked up these premium edition box sets. I highly recommend you guys go to Xseed's website and purchase these premium editions from them, because, you know, it might be a little bit more expensive than buying them used, but you're supporting a fantastic company by giving them all of the money. So that's my plea to you, is to go to Xseed and buy the games directly from them. But I've played a little bit of this, and the reason why I've only played a little bit of this version is because I started playing it, and these games are hard. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you're going to die. But you can save anywhere in these, and that's kind of a lifesaver in a lot of ways. But I forgot to save, and I died, and I lost a lot of progress, and I was like, oh, since I'm at the beginning again, I might as well just, you know, go play something else. So I put it back on the shelf, but what I played of it, it plays exactly like the old Ys games, because these, I forgot to mention this, these things play a little weird, okay? Especially, well, just Ys 1 and 2, and 4. But in Ys, you have your character here, and you have your enemy, and you basically, there's no attack button. You just run into them, and that's how you attack. But you can't run head on. You have to kind of move in from the sides. You have to be a little bit, you know, off. You can't be directly head on, or the enemy will damage you back. So you just basically use the control pad to move around and attack. And this game is still very faithful to that. I think you can change the control scheme to have an attack button, but I don't really know why you would do that. The way you attack in this game works perfectly fine as it is. But if you're looking for an introduction to the Ys series, this is a fantastic way to go, although maybe Oath and Felghana might be a better game to really get you hooked, or 7. But if you really want to see what Ys classic gaming was really like, go get this game. It was also released on the DS, although this version is usually said to be not as good. The CD soundtrack, I haven't played this yet, I just got it not too long ago, but the CD soundtrack, I prefer the tracks on the PSP and the TurboGrafx more than the DS soundtrack, but, you know, it's still fun to get a music CD, and Atlas used to do this a lot with the DS games. They'd release a CD soundtrack with them. But definitely looking forward to giving this a shot and seeing how it's different. That's kind of the cool thing about buying all these different ports of the games, is just, you know, one, you get to kind of relive what that experience was, but then again, you get to see sort of what the differences are, because there is a lot of differences between the ports of Ys Book 1 and 2. You know, like with the PSP version, they add a whole little prologue thing where you play through a... Like in the TurboGrafx version, basically Adol just gets off the ship and he's in the main town and you start your adventure. And then with the PSP version, his ship actually capsizes and he washes up on a beach, like a little port town that's south of the main town that you would start at in the TurboGrafx version. So there's these little subtle differences between the versions, so that's why I like to collect all the different versions of Ys. Plus, like I said, it was a series I missed out on a kid, so I'm really making up for it now. But found a fantastic deal on this really, not mint, but very nice copy of this game. So got that in my collection. And then one of the ways that most people who are old school like me got into the series was with Ys the Vanished Omens on the Sega Master System. Now, I didn't own a Master System when I was a kid. I was a Nintendo kid. There was a port on the Famicom, but they never brought it over here to America. I have played the Famicom port on my emulator, and, you know, it's basically what you would expect a Nintendo version of the game to be. And it's very close to this. The Master System was a little more graphically powerful than the NES, so it looks a little bit better, it sounds a little bit better, but this is just Book 1 of Ys. We didn't get Book 2 until they did the TurboGrafx versions, but That being said, I've played it a little bit of it just to kind of see what it'd be like, and it's a pretty faithful port. The only problem I have with this game is the Master System's controller. Definitely play your Master System games with a Sega Genesis controller. It's just a fantastic controller. The Master System controller just sucks horribly. But still a really nice port of the game. I'm really looking forward to playing. I'm going to play all these Ys games to completion. It's just a matter of time, you know, feeling like playing a game I've already played versus playing something new. But definitely looking forward to playing this on the Master System. Next, we move, you know, the Ys series really is a lot like Zelda in a way. You know, the first games were that top-down view, very reminiscent of the first Legend of Zelda. And in that same regard, the sequel, Zelda 2, went to a side-scrolling perspective, and Ys 3 also went to a side-scrolling perspective. And you would think that this really changes the gameplay a lot, but really it doesn't. And I find myself really enjoying Ys 3. I know a lot of people really consider it to be the black sheep of the series, but I find myself really enjoying the game. And actually, when I look at this, there were so many ports of Ys 3 that it's really the biggest part of my collection. It's not my favorite game in the series, but it's just whenever I see a different version of Ys 3, I always pick it up because it's usually pretty cheap. But the version that I got into Ys 3 with was actually the Super Nintendo cart. I finally picked it up. This was before Oath and Felghana came out, and I played it, and I loved it. And like every other Ys game, it's brutally difficult. You're going to spend, you know, you need to level Adol up to like you'll just walk into the first dungeon, fight that first monster, go back out and respawn him for like the first 20 minutes of the game until he gets to a decent level. It's really that hard. But once you get the play mechanics down and the different perspective down, it really is a fantastic game, and I really think everyone should give it a shot. I also have the boxed Super Famicom version just because I wanted it in my collection. I had the boxed 4 and 5, so I wanted the boxed Ys 3 just to sort of complete the collection. But these are the same exact games right here. If you've played Oath and Felghana, it'd be really interesting for you guys to go back and play this so you can see what the game originally was, of course, and like it was fun for me to play Oath and Felghana because I got to see, you know, the environments that I remembered from this game in a totally different perspective. So that was really kind of cool and fun. But another port of Ys 3 that came out was on the Sega Genesis. And it's funny because between the two of them, the Genesis actually has slightly better graphics and slightly better sound, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because basically the Super Nintendo was leaps and bounds more powerful than the Genesis. Aside from the Genesis faster processor, which allowed it to do shmups a lot better, the Super Nintendo really outclassed the Genesis. And I might, you know, step on some toes with that statement, but it's true. But in the case of Ys 3, the graphics are just a little bit better, and the sound is just a little bit better. And I don't know if it was just because this was made by Renovation and this was done by Sammy. Well, it was brought over by Sammy, but Token House did the original Super Nintendo port. I don't know who did the Genesis port in Japan. I don't know the original company. It was brought over by Renovation, but I can't remember if, you know, Token House did this port as well. But this port is just a little bit better. And that's kind of, you know, weird about how ports used to be. Because, you know, with like Final Fantasy 13, there was no real difference between the games. The graphics were a little bit more compressed on the 360, but for the most part it was the same exact game. Whereas back in the day, you know, ports of the same game on different systems were actually usually a really different affair. Like the port of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo was a beat-em-up style game, whereas on the Sega Genesis it was a fighting game. So, you know, they usually try to do different games on different systems back in the day. However, that being said, this is basically the same game, it's just, you know, slight graphical differences. Another big port of Ys 3, of course, was the TurboGrafx version. This has the best graphics and best sound of all three versions. Has really nice cutscenes that were, unfortunately, when they translated it to English for America, they really butchered the opening, and it doesn't make any sense. But still a fantastic port, and you know, if you're really looking to get the best version of Ys 3 classically, this would probably be it. So, and then of course we have what everybody has probably been playing Ys 3, the Ys Othenfelgana. And this is not only my favorite PSP Ys game, this might be my favorite Ys game overall. This is just a fantastic, brutally difficult, but it really keeps you wanting to play type of game. And I really enjoyed my time with it because I did enjoy Ys 3, and I liked seeing how the environments and the storyline was enhanced with this new port. This takes it from the 2D perspective back to the overhead perspective that we're used to with Ys, and really just a fantastic game. I can't you know, tell you guys enough to go out and pick this game up. I got of course, the big chunky box set that comes with a CD soundtrack, because I had to have the CD soundtrack. It also comes with a 2011 art calendar, which is kind of a moot point now, but the artwork is still really fantastic on it. But a fantastic port of a often misunderstood and underappreciated game. So I'm glad that they did this so people can go back and experience that story and not be sort of sidetracked by the gameplay. Fantastic game. Go out and get it. And then we get into an interesting part of the series, and the next two games, well, 3 games if you count the different ports, I haven't actually played through to completion yet. I've played this next game a little bit just to see how it plays on both systems, and that is Ys 4. Now, this is getting ready to be ported. They're doing an enhanced remake on the Vita, and I'm not sure how this is going to go, because it's an interesting story about this game, because this game was of course done by Tonkin House, who did the other Ys games on the Super Nintendo, and I think Falcom had a little bit more control of this game, because this is actually considered to be the canon storyline as of right now. With Ys 4 on the PC Engine, Dawn of Ys, this one was developed more by Hudson Soft, and Hudson Soft took a little bit more liberties with the storyline. They both essentially have the same storyline. It's just, you know, minor little subtle differences, and actually, you know, maybe a little bit more than subtle differences. You know, these are both in Japanese, so I only know what I've read. So it's going to be interesting when the Vita version comes out. That's developed by Falcom. It's the first time Ys 4 was actually developed by Falcom, and it's going to be interesting to see, you know, which storyline they follow more, or if they sort of carve out a new storyline for Ys 4. But this returns it after, you know, Ys 3, everyone kind of said it was a black sheep of the gaming of the series. This returns it back to the overhead view that we're used to with Ys, and it plays exactly like Ys Book 1 and 2. You still walk into enemies to do the attacks. This game actually has the same exact graphics as Ys Book 1 and 2. Maybe, you know, the cutscenes are slightly enhanced. The music is amazing. It really is a fantastic game to have. Definitely look into getting these PC Engine ports, because, you know, this one was never released in America. And Ys Book 1 and 2 and Ys 3 for the American TurboGrafx are really expensive, whereas these are really affordable. So you can get these, have these cool things in your collection, and pop them into your CD player and listen to the fantastic music. But as for Ys 4, I do have a translated ROM on my emulator, and I do really want to play it, but I have a hard time playing games on my PC because I have programs running in the background, and that always causes hiccups with the emulator. So I'm actually looking into getting a Super EverDrive to be able to play, you know, my translated ROMs for my Super Famicom games. So I have this actually on the queue to play. It's pretty far back though, so I don't know if I'll actually get to it before I get my EverDrive. But I'm going to download a gaming guide and try my hardest to get through it. I mean, really, you know, these Ys games, the storylines are pretty good, but, you know, the only thing you really need to know is where to go next and what item you need. So, really looking forward to trying to trying this out and really trying to put a dent into my Super Famicom games. I buy these and of course I'm like, oh yes, I'm going to play them, and I never do because the Japanese always scares me off. But I really want to put these in because that's what you had to do back in the day. We didn't have ROMs and fan translations. You just imported the game and tried your hardest to play them. But that is Ys 4. And then we get to Ys 5, which was only on the Super Nintendo. As far as I know, there might have been a PC port that I don't know about, but this is actually another black sheep in the series because they changed the graphics around a little bit, and they sort of changed the play mechanics where Adol has to hit a button to attack now. Instead of having the sort of anime-ish Adol from the previous games, he's now more realistically proportioned. And in a lot of ways, a lot of people criticize this for looking like a generic Super Nintendo game instead of an Ys game. But there's actually two versions of this game, and I have of course, the less expensive version. There was this, and a lot of people criticize this game because it was way too easy. So Falcom went back and they did a Ys 5 Expert, and that will run you about $80, I think even loose. Of course, a box copy will be a lot more. But when I was looking into it, I was like, oh, I don't really need Ys 5 Expert. If I want it, I can just download the ROM. What I really want is just an Ys 5 in my collection, just to have the entire Ys series. So I haven't got around to playing this yet, but I really love the Ys artwork. I don't think I really have talked about this yet, but especially with the cover of Ys 4 Dawn of Ys, I just love these really kind of esoteric, ancient culture looking covers. That's one of the cool things about the Ys is the art direction of the series. I really love these old statues that they always put on the covers and stuff. But really an interesting game. I'm hoping to give it a shot here soon. But there is a fan translated ROM coming out. They're I think about 85% done with it, so it might take a little bit longer to do. I'm really hoping that with Xseed, well not Xseed, with Falcom bringing out Ys 4, and hopefully Xseed bringing it over to America for the Vita, I'm really hoping Falcom will go back and remake Ys 5. Really wanting to play this game. So that is Ys 5. Now, the next game is probably the third Ys game I played. Yeah, it is the third Ys game I played, and it is a really fantastic game. And there's two ways that you can get a hold of this game, and that is Ys the Ark of Nepishtim, or Ys 6 Ark of Nepishtim, however you want to phrase it. The PS2 port. This is the one that you want to play. The PSP port, it actually has some advantages over the PS2 version, but I hear it has horrific load times. So if you can't deal with load times, I would not go with this port. But however, I like the cartoony graphics a little bit better. Like Adol's super deformed in this one, and it has anime cutscenes in it instead of the horrific looking CGI cutscenes that Konami did for this port. However, yeah, like I said, in this one, Adol's a little bit more realistically proportioned, but the two games play essentially the same. If you've played Othenfelgana or Trails in the Sky, it uses this engine. So if you've played those games on the PSP, you kind of know what you're getting graphically with this game. It's not like the most visually mind-blowing PS2 game out there, but I really enjoyed its sort of old-school flavor. And brutally difficult game, but like I said, like with these Ys games, they make you want to finish them because they're so amazing and so fun. So definitely check out Ark of Nepishtim. Like I said, there's two ways to get it. There are some exclusive PSP features on here, which of course I haven't really messed with because I haven't actually played this port yet. But it says play fun mini games, Ys music, videos, and character info as you play. So I guess you get to unlock a bunch of stuff in this. So that actually makes me kind of want to play it now to see what all's on there. But I'll definitely get around to this because I really enjoyed Ark of Nepishtim. So yeah, check it out. Really awesome game. And then finally, this is the game that sort of started off the entire Ys explosion in America. Because like I said, this was a very niche title that only a few people knew about back in the day, but now with these PSP ports, it's like everyone is talking about Ys. So it's kind of fantastic, but also in a way, it kind of feels like, it kind of feels like my thoughts on the Beach Boys box set. Like Smile was such a huge like unknown. Of course we had all the snippets and stuff, but then once it was finally released in this glorious box set that just came out this year, sort of some of the mystery is a little bit gone. So like that, you know, now that Ys is a popular series, some of the mystery is kind of gone about it, but still, I'm glad it's out. I'm glad everyone's loving it, and hopefully Falcom and Xseed keep bringing it over to America. But anyway, last game in the series that I have is Ys 7. Fantastic game. A lot of people gave it crap because, you know, this is the first game where you're not playing as just Adol. You actually have a party, and you have to switch between the characters to sort of take advantage of weapons. Like Dogi, his hits are really strong, whereas Adol's are sort of in the middle, and then you know, you have characters with like arrows and spells that are really kind of light hits. So you have to sort of balance this sort of paper, rock, scissors battle system. But still a fantastic game. Really a long game for the Ys series. I didn't talk about that, how the Ys series, most of these games are really short. Like Ys 3 on the Super Nintendo, I think it would take you like maybe 3 or 4 hours to beat that game. Oath and Felghana on the PSP, it might take you around 8 hours. Same thing with Ys Book 1 and 2. But Ys 7, I think, I want to say about 30 hours to beat this, so it's about the length of a standard RPG. Definitely, if you're going to get this port, definitely get the big box set here, because you get oodles of stuff in this. You get, of course, the CD soundtrack. You're going to want it, because Ys music is amazing. You get a big cloth map, which, you know, it really throws me back to sort of the Working Designs years, where you would get like a cloth map, you know, in these big box sets. So Xseed's really the Working Designs of today. Maybe not as good as Working Designs, but still, you know, right up there. And of course you get a big, gorgeous art book that has, you know, art of all of the Ys games in it. So it's actually kind of cool to go back and look through the art. But definitely, if you even think about getting the Ys into the Ys series, just go do it. Go to Xseed's site, or go on PSN if you want to do it that way. Download these games on your PSP. Buy these games straight from Xseed. Make sure they get the money, because they're really bringing out a lot of quality titles that I think in this generation would really be forgotten. Because, you know, in a lot of ways, this current generation really feels like kind of back in the Super Nintendo era, where RPGs came out kind of few and far between, and they were really cherished gems. And, you know, there was a lot of action games, a lot of sports games, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the way it feels now with, like, the Xbox. You know, I think the Xbox being a Western-developed console, even though there are great RPGs on it, I feel like it's more of an action-oriented console. And RPGs have kind of been thrown to the wayside in lieu of, you know, first-person shooters and things like that. So whenever there's an RPG released, it is kind of a cherished gem. Even though certain games might not be as good as others, we still kind of cherish them because we don't get very many RPGs. So this is definitely one to look out for. If you guys have a PSP, go get this. Don't even think about it. Just a fantastic game. If you like action RPGs like Kingdom Hearts and stuff like that, you'll fall in love with this. So definitely get into this. So that is my Ys collection. The only thing I have that I didn't really show you guys is my Arcanum Pistum strategy guide, which is not that, I mean, it's, you know, a Brady Games strategy guide. There's nothing really fancy about it, so I didn't pull that out. But anyway, the Ys series was a series that I loved to look at pictures of as a kid. I really wish I got to play it as a kid, because I would have just dove into this shit. Maybe the reason why I like it so much is because I have red hair and Adol has red hair, and I can relate to that character really well. Adol's really becoming one of my favorite characters, even though he's kind of a silent protagonist. He's right up there with Link for me. It's definitely rekindled my love of old school gaming, and if you have any interest in one of the most fantastic action RPG series out there, definitely look into this series, because even with the modern titles like Ys 7, it still plays like an old school action RPG, and that's what I love about it. You know, I'm a retro kid at heart. My heart really lies back in the Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, you know, PlayStation 1 back era, you know. I really love these old school games, and there's nothing more old school than Ys. And definitely check these games out, guys. And that is it for me. here in a couple days, I got my text from GameStop, so my the pit that I just threw a bunch of money into, that is Final Fantasy 13-2. I can pick it up on Tuesday, so I work noon to 8:30 on Tuesday, so the video unboxing probably won't be up till about, I don't know, midnight or 2 in the morning or such. But I will do an unboxing of that collector's edition of the game, and just add my video to the static out there, because I think everyone's going to be, well, I say everyone's going to be doing an unboxing of it, but I don't really think anyone's really going to buy it other than me, because I'm a sucker. But that'll be coming up. I have some other ideas for some videos coming up, so that being said, that is all I have to say about Ys. Thank you for watching. Check these games out. Support Xseed, guys. If you have love for RPGs in your heart, Xseed is really where you want to throw your money at. So definitely go onto their site and buy these games. And that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Leave me comments. Tell me what you think about the Ys series. I really, a lot of people played it back in the day. Some people are just getting into it. I'd like to hear what you guys think about Ys. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.